It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with certified financial planners Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being here, friends. My name is Mike Bernard. I am your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners on the show. Right here with me in the KFG studios, my business partners and friends, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory.
All right, friends, what's the first thing you need to know about money? You ever think about that? We have an opinion for you. Have you ever heard of the Rule of 72? Coming up on this episode of Wise Money, we're talking about the Rule of 72, what it is, how you calculate it, and more importantly, how do you apply it in your financial life?
Second half of the program, we're going to be taking questions from fans of the show. You want to send us your question? We'd love to help. Reach out to us online, wisemoneyshow.com. There's a spot to submit questions right there on the right. Turns into an email, comes right to me. You can call or text 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. Then all over social media, that's where we get the most engagement from fans. You'll find us on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, all that. Wherever you're at, we're there too. Just search the Wise Money Show. You can submit questions there as well. All right, so what's the first thing you need to know about money, and how do you almost gamify building wealth? What is it?
You know, we were talking about this before the show started, and I shared that my earliest memory of financial concepts, it doesn't go back that far, really. It was in college, but one of the very first things they taught us was this Rule of 72 and how to apply it. It was in a finance class, may have even been a personal finance class. But basically what it is it's just kind of a quick little math problem that you can do. To figure out, I know, I couldn't believe actually that you came up with a topic for this show. We have a rule, Mike.
That's right.
It's don't do math on the radio. No, the Rule of 72 is basically a way for you to figure out how to double your money using either time or a certain rate of return as the thing that you're trying to calculate. So the Rule of 72 would say if you have a certain number of years to double your money, divide 72 by that number of years, and it will tell you what rate of return you would have to earn in order to double your money in that period of time. But the math works the opposite way as well. If you know a certain rate of return that you're going to be earning, if that's knowable, divide 72 by that rate of return, and now you know how many years it's going to take you to double your money.
And oftentimes we do approach it from that angle, and that is, okay, your risk tolerance, your comfort zone from an investment approach, this type of portfolio should produce an average rate of return, not each and every year, but an average rate of X, right? And then 72 divided by X. All right, so therefore, this type of portfolio will help you double your money within this many years. And so to gamify all of this, Kevin said before we started, I mean, really the idea of building wealth is how many doubles can you get in your lifetime? How many doubles can you get in your lifetime? I mean, that is the name of the game, and that's why we tell you, and it's so important to start early. It's important to be saving the right amount, and it's important to be taking the right level of risk.
That's exactly right. You know, I had a new individual come into our office. They were trying to decide whether or not they were going to utilize the services of a financial advisor for the very first time in their life, 2.5 years from retirement. And, I'm interviewing them, trying to understand what work have they done up to this point. And they had accumulated a certain amount of money, and he had a certain idea of how much money he needed to have by the time he got to retirement. And it was about two years out. And he said he needed to double his money in 2 years. And, of course, instantly I'm going to the Rule of 72, right?
Oh, I thought you started talking about Tesla stock.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the IPO market.
I was able to quantify for him very rapidly, hey, if you wanted to or needed to double your money in 2 years, that's 36% per year that you would have to earn. And that's a level of risk, or I may dare say speculation, that you should not be doing on the eve of retirement, especially not, 10, 11 years into a bull market run at the time. And
Well, I don't know. If you happen to have this conversation on March 27th of this year.
yeah, good point. But the problem is, to your point, had he done everything he needed to up to that 2-year window before retirement, if he had started earlier, maybe that doubling actually could have happened earlier in his life if he had just gotten started earlier.
Most of the time, when you talk about doubling your money, I think of this town in Ireland that I'd love to visit someday. Sorry, that's bad.
That wasn't
joke.
funny the first time.
Okay. Well, that was funny. Kevin mentioned, I mean, you think of, well, how much money do I need to be contributing in order to get my current nest egg to be twice its size? But we'd rather, yes, absolutely. Building wealth requires your contribution. And yet at the same time, we want you to be thinking about compound interest. And that's that average rate of return. So, Kevin, I have this sense that you're doing math over there. What wisdom can you share with us?
Well, I think, this whole idea came out of a Saturday afternoon that I spent with my son Caleb and his friends Peter and Jonah talking about what are the first things you guys need to know about money, because they had said, Mr. Corn, I've got a couple of bucks, and could you help me with some things? And so the one-to-many model works best when you're working with little grasshoppers, and so we were, and actually Vince was there as well. Didn't mean to leave Vince out, but so we talked about all of these concepts that they were never taught in school. They had the benefits of a classical education, but they didn't learn a ding-dong thing about money. So they have mastered most of the, I don't know if you, it sounds unkind to say it, but they've mastered the impractical matters of the life of the mind. But the practical, how do you implement it? How do you not let years and years and years go by? And I had them bring in their tax returns, and I showed them in their prior year where they left money on the table. It had to do with a 529 plan for a couple of them. And then this year, one of them will benefit from the retirement savers credit.
Nice.
And so they don't, but again, they had no idea what we were talking about. And one of the big concepts was, hey, what do you do with this money if with this money, if my mindset is I invest it and let it grow for the next 45 years, what is this $1,000 worth versus I take this $1,000 and go buy a really cool stereo system? Mm-hmm. Oh, no, that's what I did. So they don't buy those anymore. But it was cool. The speakers were about 3.5 feet tall. Anyways, so you look at this and this opportunity cost, and it's very interesting because this is a different generation, and most of these kids, very different from my generation. My generation, we grew up, we didn't have that stuff, so we wanted to go get it. We wanted to go buy our own car. We wanted to buy this for ourselves. A lot of these kids have that stuff for themselves. It's like, well, what do I do with this money? I've got very basic transportation. I don't need to spend money on that. Hey, put some of that money away for the long term. Look at an Indiana 529 plan for yourself to zero out your state tax liability. Some of these other things. And so, but the key thing, and we said, what's the first thing that you want to know? Is how to double your money.
That's right. And we're going to, it's interesting to be talking about this right now because I wonder about in this current economic and financial climate, has it changed? Has it changed? So what are the implications of Rule of 72 when you apply it to right now? That's what we've got coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show. You're at the Wise Money Show channel. What you're watching right now is our weekly 1-hour talk show where we're talking about what's going on with the Rule of 72, how you apply compound interest. What is it, the 7th, 8th wonder of the world, something like that, Albert Einstein said. and apply it to your financial life. If you're not a subscriber to this channel, hit that subscribe button. Leave comments, questions below. We appreciate it. If a 1 hour talk show is too long for you, every single business day we've got a financial nugget, a next wise step that we bring to you about taking what's going on in the world of finance, how to apply it with wisdom to your finances. So make sure you subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and turn on notifications. Thank you very much. All right, so let's get into it. Probably, quickly restate that formula again with an example or something. So if you can get 10% a year, double your money in 7 years. If you're taking, less risk and you're investing and you only earn 1%, it'll take 72 years. Did I do that math right? Okay. And then we'll get into implications. All right. Let's play a game. How many doubles can you get in your finances over your lifetime? How many doubles does it take of your nest egg to get you from wherever you're at right now to retirement? And that's what we're talking about today, really the rule of 72 and how to apply it. And what's coming up right now is how do you apply it in today's very tricky financial situation. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name's Mike Bernard. Here with me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn, Josh Gregory. Stay connected to the Wise Money Show. You'll find us on online, wisemoneyshow.com, and you can engage with us also on social media. Wherever you're at, we are there as well. Follow us there. Just search the Wise Money Show, and you can submit questions, comments, engage with us that way. We'd love to hear from you, so connect with us there. Okay, so how do you apply? So let's recap. What's the rule of 72 about doubling your money, and then how do you apply it in today's environment?
Yeah, just a reminder, the rule of 72 is just a quick math formula to help you figure out how to double your money if you have a certain number of years to get that done in, or a certain rate of return that you believe you're going to be able to achieve. So here's how it works. If you take 72 and divide it by a 10% rate of return, it's going to take you 7.2 years to double your money.
So, but you've got to get a 10% rate of return.
That's right.
Each year,
so
on average.
On the other hand, you could do the opposite and say 72 divided by a number of years, like 9 years, means you need to earn an 8% rate of return in order to double your money in that 9 years. So it's a quick way for you to maybe test what's realistic for you as far as rate of return, what kind of expectations maybe could you have in your financial life. But this question of how many doubles though, it is a series of doubles that it's going to take a series of doubles for you to be able to achieve your most important goals. And the reason that we say it's so important to get started early is because early on, your doubles could happen just by saving more money, right? If you've got $3,000 in a Roth IRA, you might be able to double your money in 1 year by just saving another $3,000 without earning any kind of rate of return. But as you get further along and as the doubles start to happen because the investments are performing for you, not just because you're adding to the accounts, that's where the real power comes. When the nest egg itself is rolling over and doubling up for you, given enough time. And so the principle here is that you have to let this money work for you. You have to put it at risk. It has to be able to earn some sort of rate of return. I want my kids to understand that if they throw $100 into a bank account and it earns them 1%, it's going to take them 72 years to double their money, right? However, if that same $100 they could be adding over time and they're actually exposing it to investments that can give them a fair rate of return, some growth potential, maybe there could be many doubles during their lifetime.
All right, what are the implications right now? We've got stocks that are high. We've got interest rates that are low. I mean, is this, a couple weeks ago we talked about the four tragic words that an investor could say. And so can you apply the rule of 72 at this moment moving forward? What would you tell those that might be skeptical right now and say, well, That worked in the past. Maybe it's not going to work in the future.
Well, the rule 72 is like gravity, right? Like it works. The question, I think what most people might be thinking when they ask that question is, well, yeah, the stock market has historically returned 10%, but I've heard the outlook for long-term equity returns is middle to low single digits.
It usually does sound like that. You know,
It
they were talking about the new normal. Some of the smartest people on the planet were talking about the new normal. Oh, you know, low single-digit rate of returns from this point forward in 2009. This is 11 years ago. We have not seen that. Has not been the experience.
Yeah.
No, actually, the S&P 500 is up 400% since that point in time. And Warren Buffett, one of the smartest guys as it relates to investing in our lifetime, said he was looking at single digits, like low single digits.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's important to first recognize this rule of 72. It's theoretical, but it is math. If, yes, you could earn 8% compounding each year, you could double your money in 9 years per the formula. The question, though, is can you achieve 8% per year compounding? And the answer is the stock market doesn't work that way, right? It doesn't give you an exact 8% predictable return every single year for 9 years straight. It's up and down. It's kind of a little bit of a roller coaster ride. There may be some years where it's up 15% and the next year it's only up 6%. But the question is, over time, if you use a diversified mix of investments that's appropriate for your level of risk tolerance and comfort level and your experience, and then also match it to your time horizon. If you're using that mix of investments, you should be able to have some kind of expectations of about what the average rate of return would be.
Yeah, the problem is, Josh, when you said 1 year it returns 15, the next year it returns 6. This year, 1 month it was up 10. The next month we were down 34. 6 months later, we're up 10 again. You know, so it is absolutely wild. But let me hit this. We've never seen interest rates at 0. Right? I think 80% of all bonds out there are paying less than 2%, I think. And in the stock market valuations, the last time valuations were this high, we had, quote unquote, the lost decade. Playing devil's advocate is would you still do that same rule of 72 math for a client coming in today?
I think so, just because it gives them a frame of reference on what is possible. Right?
I don't even hesitate. I absolutely would. I absolutely would. And I would talk about the risk, but it is still just math. And that's why you need to be diversified. That's why you need to be looking at your overall retirement plan, making sure you know what you need to be doing to be on track. But absolutely, you apply the rule of 72 even today.
That's right. And what you have to be adaptive with is how you go achieve that rate of return that's going into the formula.
Yes.
The formula works all the time, every time. It's just simple division, right? You learn how to do it in 3rd grade, or maybe it's kindergarten these days. I don't know.
I thought it was multiplication.
At home.
But the point, though, is, as you said, this is an environment where the traditional older investments of a bond portfolio kicking off 8%. There was a day and a time early in my lifetime when you could earn 8% in just a simple bond portfolio. But that's not today. And so in order to go earn that 8%, it may take a different mix of investments, a different strategy, and it might need to be different 5 years from now as well.
We're going to be talking about that coming up in a future episode. 60-40 is dead. Your 60-40 mix, you've got to think differently. You've got to think differently. And this, you think we've been talking about the importance of comprehensive financial planning up to this point? Guys, it is extremely more important moving forward because of how the environment has changed. And so we'll be talking about. But the point is, we emphasize Warren Buffett and we emphasized these just incredibly talented individuals who have just sort of gotten it wrong. The truth is, there's no way to predict the future. You just can't. I think given today's environment, the future is very VUCA. it's volatile, it's uncertain, right? And so I think we've got a lot of risk today, but I would still project out that rule of 72 moving forward. So then the question is, where do you want to apply that doubling? What type of account, and then how do you structure your investments to give yourself the best chance of reaching that? That's where we're taking this, applying it. Next, coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. All right, I have been. 60-40 is dead.
I almost gave a rebuttal on that one.
You can.
I know you were just being provocative.
You know me.
Mike,
turn into this big
Michael
know,
Paul, the provocateur.
But I'm okay. I mean, sharing it here. I mean, you guys have missed the last couple advisor L10s, but we've been talking about allocation and whatever. And it's like, listen, if someone needs 60-40 mix, do you take their entire portfolio and go 60% core equity and 40% dynamic income? Like, why would you own traditional bonds at the moment? I don't like, so I'm playing, devil's advocate here, but I think we all need to be approaching that 40 differently than we have in the past. So, I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting because you can say bond markets are cyclical over decades and decades and decades. However, we've never seen rates at zero in the U.S.
But a 60-40 approach is going to have, if it has especially frequent rebalances built into it, then rebalancing out of some of those bonds that had a quick little run up can help you buy some equities really dirt cheap at certain points. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I still see it as a piece of someone's portfolio. If that's the only thing you're relying upon, and I assume this was kind of what you were getting at. Mm-hmm. If that's the only approach you have, you may be in trouble. Yeah. Or you may be in for a more volatile, underperforming ride than what past generations would have enjoyed.
I mean, at least pension companies have said, we can't do this. We can't figure that one out. You're going to need to put more money in this if you want to keep those promises. No, not willing to do that. Here you go. Here's your money.
Yep.
So,
as we've seen in town.
Exactly.
With big employers.
All over the place, yeah.
All right, so third segment, talk about tax shelters and then talk about diversification. So this 60-40 idea being dead. I do think I want to have a show just about that where we debate it. Talk about different ways to get your income.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about tax shelters in the context of the Rule of 72.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't need to be a long, belabored
it's
topic.
It's so hard now because really what people need to do is revisit their financial plan because of the Secure Act. And it feels like the Secure Act happened 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does.
But, I mean, this is the time to revisit your strategy, and where it might not have ever made sense to do Roth contributions to your 401k, it might start making some sense.
You guys are finally coming around. You're finally wising up. Just kidding.
Isn't that a town in Germany?
Yeah.
Wisen up.
Weisenhauser.
Oh, just teasing. All right.
No,
well,
I think
let's have fun.
that's smart. We've got to get this show pointed back to the financial plan.
Right.
And that does that.
Right.
That's
okay.
good.
Yeah.
Where do you want to apply the Rule of 72 in my finances? Well, I know that, but what type of account? What type of account do you want to see that doubling occur? Not an obvious answer. We're going to tell you about that and more coming up here. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name's Mike. Here with me in the KFG studios, Kevin and Josh. Every episode of the Wise Money Show, if you've missed anything, it's right there on podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, just search the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Do me a favor, subscribe to it and rate the show. Leave a comment there. And that helps others who are looking for podcast material on wise financial principles helps them find us, and we appreciate the feedback as well. So find us on podcast. All right, so, the rule of 72. And we've talked about a couple of ways you can apply it in the implication of it, but you actually have a choice as to where you invest. I mean, where do you want this sort of doubling to occur? What type of account? Let's talk about how you apply this really in the context of tax planning.
Well, you would want, for sure, I mean, when you think about that, I'm sure most folks listening right now are not saying, well, I want certain accounts to grow really effectively and other accounts
to stink up the house.
Yeah, we do not want that kind of growth happening in that account. But certainly within your tax sheltered accounts. So if you could have a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, you could have a traditional 401k or a Roth 401k, these various components within these retirement plans. And what makes a lot of sense is to figure out, and again, this goes back to the 6 areas of financial planning, what should that mix be of investments within these various types? Because you can just have a straight up non-retirement, just a joint account with your spouse or an individual account of your own with a transfer on death on it, what have you. So when you look at that, there is a distinct advantage to growing money in a tax-favored environment, in that if I need to change strategies, or if I need to make an adjustment, or I just need to do a simple rebalance, I'm not going to be punished if I'm doing that in my accounts that are not going to give me a 1099 at the end of the year and say pay taxes on this amount.
I mean, really this concept of where do you want this doubling to occur? Yeah, all of my investments. But it goes back to which tax shelters make sense for your overall financial plan. And that's the mistake that we see lots of people come in and we need to help them correct, is why do you have this money sitting over here when you could be funding this type of tax shelter with that money and kind of filtering it in there to have the future growth growing in a tax favorable way?
Well, and who would have known that the spring of 2020 was going to give such an amazing opportunity for that to occur? But we had clients who, they have a goal of funding their kids' college education, for example. I'm thinking of a couple that came in, and normally their pattern has always been, we just always do it in December. We throw money into a 529 plan because at least in Indiana, we know that they're going to get a 20% tax credit on their Indiana return by doing that. So we always make sure we get that done. But this year, when the stock market was plummeting in February and March, all of a sudden we said, hey, we need to scrape together whatever money it's going to take, get that money into the 529 plan right now, because we know it's an amazing buying opportunity. And, we didn't know at the time that the market was just going to completely reverse course and climb so rapidly as it has. But we knew it was a good buying opportunity. And the rationale was, listen, if we can get in now, any growth that occurs is happening inside that 529 plan, which is going to be tax-free growth. And that, to me, is the short answer to your question. Hey, if you could pick between different tax shelters, to me, the one that gives you a doubling of your money and it's completely tax-free, man, that gets my attention. Mm-hmm. So Roth IRA is another example of that. But this 529 plan, it's already up big this year, just simply because they bought at the right time. And they were paying attention to the fact, exactly what Kevin just said, get it out of accounts where as you earn money, you pay taxes.
Right.
We want to have that doubling happening in accounts where it's going to be tax-free to you.
And, the other account that comes to mind is the HSA. And I'm going to tie this into the final topic on this, and that is how do you structure the investments to go out and achieve that doubling? Because in your HSA, where the growth is tax-free, most of them are not set up to double in this century, right? Because they're not invested appropriately. Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about the importance of the right investment approach in order to leverage this rule of 72.
Well, the only thing I was going to clarify on that, though, some HSAs are not invested at all. They're in essentially a savings type vehicle because it's temporary money that isn't positioned for growth. It's money you know you're going to spend. So that might be appropriate for some people. But many folks don't realize that the health savings account can be an investment tool for you. It can grow for a long time, even use it as a retirement funding vehicle. And if that's the case, it's another one of these amazing places to get a doubling happening with no tax consequences to you in the long run.
Yeah. Okay, so when I think of investing in a way to have a chance, have a shot at reaching the rule of 72 and leveraging its power, I think of the Dalbar study that we have talked about in the past here on this show, and that is that you go back over, throughout history, and stocks, U.S. stocks, tend to perform around 10 to even 12%. And if you're diversified with some of that being in bonds, then you might be expecting an 8 to 10% rate of return over time. But the average investor, says the research and folks at Dalbar, the average investor, their performance is closer to 3% per year on average over time, which if you just apply the simple math, I'm not going to do it here on the show, in the rule of 72, it's going to take you, let's just say, much longer to double your money.
24 years.
If you're, oh my goodness, brilliant. Much longer to double your money than the historical return to the stock market. So how do you get the optimal rate of return for your level of risk? And we would say it's following a prudent investment approach that's connected with your overall financial plan. We believe in having a diversified mix of low cost but high quality mutual funds, complementing that with a momentum strategy.
But then not doing any self-sabotaging,
Yes.
right? Because it's our own self-defeating behaviors often that limit our rates of return over time. And I got to tell you, it's in years like this one where there's an election happening, right? Where
There is?
you have a story you're telling yourself in your mind that depending on how this election goes, the whole world's going to melt down or it's going to be great. One of the two. And if it doesn't go your way or it doesn't fulfill your expectations, maybe all of a sudden you get real protective, you get real defensive with the money, and you take your eye off that long-term game plan and you start doing things that actually limit your true rate of return.
It's already started happening, and there is incredible conviction, and people are so wrong and so convinced they're right. And don't feel bad if you're hearing this, because if you can hear this, you are hardwired to be a horrible investor.
Yeah.
That's how we were actually made, and it's part of what allows us to actually survive on this earth, but it also makes us bad investors.
So you've got to have the right investment philosophy, and then you've got to stick to it. So you've got to have the right discipline, and really the best way to do that is be unemotional and be teamed up with a certified financial planner who's a fiduciary and doing what's in your best interest to reach your overall financial plan. All right, we've got questions from fans from the show coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. I used to really, really care about the clock, and now I sort of care. So if I'm making your life miserable, you just got to tell me, like, Mike, you've got to stick to it.
Those 3 seconds matter.
Those 3 seconds. All right. Land of the plane.
You like that voice we assigned to you, by the way? Those 3 seconds. That's exactly what you sound like.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
That's funny.
Okay, so which ones are we hitting?
Hang on 1 second. You tell me, look at them, tell me which ones you like.
I can't read that fast. Practically illiterate.
Did you just hear what Josh just said?
No, I'm typing something.
That was the truth, by the way. I am the world's slowest reader.
I'm going to go with maybe second slowest.
Ryan, Alicia. Oh, yeah.
And
Ooh.
the Donna question. That Donna question's actually
Okay,
also really fits.
let's start with Donna, and then we'll go to Ryan and Alicia. I doubt.
Don't you just want to say Alicia?
I know. I doubt we'll get all the way down.
Do you want me to know? You want to know how I would say your last name?
No.
Okay.
All right.
checking.
Okay, here we go. Thanks for being with us today. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. Here with me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. If you've missed anything, every episode of the Wise Money Show is on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group, and then subscribe to it and turn on notifications. We appreciate that. You'll get every episode of the Wise Money Show, as well as our daily financial nuggets, daily financial updates, how you can apply financial wisdom to what's going on in the world of finance. You'll see that right there. So go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, and subscribe to it. Thank you very much. All right, we're transitioning into some questions from fans of the show, and we actually have some questions from that actually all were from the YouTube channel, and they really line up with the headlining topic today. First one comes from Donna. She submitted this on YouTube a few weeks ago here. I will max out my 401k this year, and I was going to max out my Roth IRA after that. My question is, should I, or can I max out a Roth IRA for my husband as well? How much money can you make and still do a Roth IRA? Also, I've heard people say that after 35 years old, you don't want to put money in a Roth. Why not? I'm 36. Should I be putting money in a different place? Great question, Donna. I reached out to her with my response shortly after she submitted that question, but what do you guys think?
You didn't share the right answer with us so we
No.
could be prepared?
No, no.
No, what a great question, and obviously a whole bunch of questions kind of wrapped up in one. Donna, when you're getting ready for retirement, it's often common, especially if you get to that stage where you're maybe empty nesters and you're done launching kids from your home, and now you can focus on this long-term goal. A lot of people really try to ramp up their contributions at that time, maybe making up for some lost time. This happens to be often many people's peak earning years, and so they have some extra discretionary income. So it's great that you're funding your 401k. You said you're going to max out your own Roth IRA, and then you asked whether or not you could do the same for your husband. And the answer is, yeah, you can do a spousal contribution to a Roth IRA as long as you have enough earned income. So that's the first question. If there are some folks out there that maybe are even in retirement and they're working a part-time job, as long as you have enough earned income, or think paycheck money here, money that would show up on your W-2 or from a small business you're running kind of on the side, that type of money allows you to be eligible to fund a Roth IRA. And if you have enough of that, you can do one for you and one for your spouse as well.
So basically those contribution limits get really geeky here. Your limit is 100% of what you make up to 100% of what you earn, your paycheck money. I like that. Okay. Up to $6,000 if you're younger than age 50, or $7,000 if you're age 50 or older. Those are 2020 limits. And when I made this response to Donna, I got another follow-up question. That is, well, what if I make too much? And so there's a phase out that begins where if you make too much money, if your adjusted gross income, if your income on your tax return, the bottom of your first page is, they don't even have that. No, yeah, there's still a bottom of the first page. If it's for a married
cut
couple,
off the bottom of that first page.
I know,
There's
so
no
dumb.
return.
Scattered it to the wind.
For married filing jointly, once that number is over 206, you can't do any. And for a single filer, I can't remember his name, but he chimed in with a question on YouTube. That limit's $139,000. Let me point out, if you married filing separate, $10,000. $10,000. So basically, you can't do a Roth if you're married filing separately. One of the consequences there of that choice. So
That's another show topic too. A lot of people wonder, hey, would there be a smart way to file separately? And the answer,
Not usually.
99.7% of the time is nope.
All right, can we get to the dessert? Like this is the cream filling or the icing on the cake or the cherry on top, or you can tell I'm hungry. I've heard people say that after 35, you don't want to put money in a Roth. Now, we're not laughing at you, Donna. I actually absolutely love that. But what we are laughing at is everyone who's ever said after 35 you shouldn't do a Roth. That's outrageous. It's outrageous.
Yeah.
As if, listen, 35 is the new 25. And 25 is the new 50. I don't know. But you're young. You are crazy young at 35. I told someone this year, or just this week, who was 68, he needed to be funding a Roth IRA.
I talked to a guy who was 82, and I said, you can't take your RMD, your required minimum distribution, and put it into your Roth, but everything above that you can take out and convert it to a Roth. And he actually didn't believe me at first. He's like, are you sure I can do that? Absolutely, you can do that.
Well, so we, this show, the earlier segments, we've been talking about the rule of 72 and where would you want to see your money double? Where do you want growth to be occurring? Obviously, inside of a tax shelter allows it to grow more tax efficient. But of all the tax shelters out there, there's nothing more tax efficient than tax free, right? And that's what the Roth IRA does for you. By getting money into a Roth IRA at any age, you're putting that money into a position where whatever growth occurs will never be taxed. Whether you're the one who receives that money back to you to spend someday, or maybe you leave it behind to a surviving spouse or the next generation, it doesn't matter. That money, the growth, is tax-free to you. So there's never an age when the Roth IRA goes out of style, right? In fact, the longer that you give it, the more powerful it becomes. And that's why we love talking to folks who are younger and have many years to let the money double and double again and double a third time, all inside of the Roth IRA. But what if you only got one double? That's okay too.
I completely agree. And so just be aware of misinformation out there. And, Kevin and I meeting, this is 8 years ago with sort of a local celebrity. And he is 65 and thought there was an age limit on contributing to a Roth. I didn't realize that. And so it was like the previous 10 years, he hadn't been contributing to a Roth IRA. And it's like, oh, gosh, the missed opportunity there. So once again, I mean, the answer isn't, all right, we'll tell you all the tedious little details here. It's just to work with someone that's in your corner, a certified financial planner who's going to give you clarity, competence, and creativity.
Right, and the challenge is you assume that the person who's preparing your taxes, if you are eligible to contribute to a Roth IRA, they would be saying, hey, did you know that you could do a Roth IRA? You could contribute to one for last year if you get that done before your tax filing deadline. And so you assume, well, if I'm eligible, they're going to be telling me or someone's going to be looking out for me. Your certified financial planner is that person.
That's their job.
Yep.
All right, Ryan chimes in with a great question here. With the stock market being as high as it is, how would you recommend investing new money? Ooh, lots of application here. I'm thinking 401k contributions. I'm also thinking, a lump sum, maybe contributions like what Donna's talking about to a Roth IRA. You go whole hog into the market right now?
Isn't it interesting when the stock market reaches new highs or it gets into certain peaks, a lot of investors start getting afraid of heights and like, I got to wait for this thing to come back down before I'm willing to grab a hold of the strongest wealth building tool in the world, in the history of the world. And, if you need some evidence of this, I want to encourage you to look back to where was the stock market at the year that you were born, however old you are. I looked back to 1979, and the Dow, it wasn't even in the thousands. It was measured in hundreds back then, right? Makes me feel old.
In the summer of
But
70.
I guarantee you, nice try.
You were born in the summer, though. That's why.
That's true.
Okay.
I guarantee you, though, there were people in 1979 at somewhere in that year that thought, man, the stock market's high right now. Is it safe to even buy in right now? And yet here you are, 41 years, is that how old I am? 41 years later, look at the wealth that's been created if you were optimistic about the future and you just let those investments do their thing. The buying in, don't be afraid just because of new peaks, because hopefully, if the trends continue, there will be new peaks far into the future as well.
Hey, and you don't look a day over 40. Here's something else, and numbers really translate well over the airwaves here, but I got this from a friend of mine. In 2013, there were 45 new all-time highs in the stock market. In 2014, there were 53 new all-time highs in the stock market. In 2015, there were 10 new all-time highs in the stock market. 2016, there were 18 new all-time highs in the stock market. 2017, I think that was the year after an election, there were 62 new all-time highs in the stock market that year. 2018 happened to be 18 new all-time highs in the stock market. 2019, 35 new all-time highs in the stock market. 2020, up to the time of this data, there were 14 with a little asterisk, and he puts including the most unlikely all-time high in history, which
The
is
one right now,
the
or
one
recently.
right now. So listen, that is how the market works, and that's a great illustration, Josh. Go back to the year you were born and look at stocks. I mean, all-time highs. That's how the market works.
And I just did that. I looked at Business Week, August 13th, 1979. The headline, The Death of Equities.
Wow.
So this is, I mean, you couldn't have been more wrong
Right.
if you were trying. So this is where, we always go back to well, is it different this time, et cetera, et cetera. Look, here's the deal. Long term, you want to own the best, well-run companies in the world. You want to be an owner. And to the extent that you can, that's going to allow your money to double.
Okay, so what's the answer? With the stock market being as high as it is, how would you recommend investing new money? I mean, the point is you invest it in stocks, and so I love dollar cost averaging.
Hold on.
If this is money that you're accumulating for a long-term goal.
No, right. I mean, our answer is always according to your plan.
Right. I guess you just assume Ryan is, your own age.
Thinking long-term.
That's right. So, how am I
You're
doing it?
old, Ryan.
Yeah. So, but right. So how would you, it's according to your overall financial plan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Because how would you invest it talks about the asset allocation. When I do stocks, bonds, different flavors of stocks, large, small, mid, international, whatever. But how would you invest it could also talk about what should I do it in a retirement account, a non-retirement account, a 529 plan. So that's why it has to be according to your plan.
If that new money should be going into long-term stock market investments, I wouldn't shy away from it. Dollar cost averaging and so on, but I wouldn't shy away from it. So good question, Ryan. Thanks for the question. Thanks for the question, Donna. That is all the time we have for today. On behalf of Josh Gregory, Kevin Korhorn, myself, and all of us at KFG, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Korhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.